There have been rumours circulating about the network for some time now, but I believe that I am the first to properly investigate them. I'm certainly the first to share my findings. I'm not going to shove this stuff down your throat, or blow it way out of proportion, nor am I not going to tell you everything that I saw. I shall not respond to any messages regarding the matter, but I will leave instructions to those of you who would be motivated enough to replicate my trip. I don't know if you've ever been to the north of Wales. Lots of mountains and valleys, a few very large towns, mostly rural communities out there. I visited a friend up in Bangor a few times, so I know the way up to the coast. From there, it was only a matter of heading south, into the foothills of Mount Snowdon. It took a while to find the old research building. It had been abandoned for years, so the address wasn't on my sat-nav, but a couple of locals on a hike pointed me in the right direction. If you plan on heading out there, I advise asking around. It's easy to get lost on those country roads. Sure enough, there was a sign that I had read about. The original words, Gwynedd Climate Research Centre, just visible through the fading coat of black paint, which had been sprayed across the sign. In their place, it had simply been dubbed End. Passing through this charming exterior, I turned up a narrow path where the hedges grew tall and tangled with weeds. I'm not talking narrow like, oh, it's going to be awkward if I meet another vehicle coming up this way. I'm talking grit your teeth through the entire way because you can hear the bushes scraping against the side of your car. Narrow. The road's surface turned to gravel and then angled up sharply. My tyres span and the innards creaked painfully, and it quickly became apparent that I wasn't going to make it up. I reversed down the short distance that I managed anyways and parked, shrugging my laptop bag and pocketing my dag's mad life. It was fairly grey morning, and I had no idea at what state the building's lighting would be in. Buttoning up my jacket, I headed up the hill. The front door was not locked, but I'd set out to check the perimeter. It was pretty much as described, and the original online post. Windows boarded up, no visible telephone or power lines feeding into the building. An exterior shell which was covered almost entirely with graffiti tags. No vehicles were in sight, and the CCTV cameras hung limp from them and dead in their cages. Good enough for me, I thought. The interior was dark as I had anticipated. I flicked on the mag light and let it play over the grimy walls and dusty floor. Odd that it should seem so undisturbed. One would think that it would be a squatter's heaven, or at the very least, littered with used needles and condom wrappers, as most other abandoned buildings tend to be. The graffiti was still present as I went further, but it seemed more and more hesitant. It was spaced out and faltered the further down the hallway I went, and finally petered out a few feet from the reception desk. The local teenagers had obviously lost their nerve. I found the fuse box behind the desk and flipped on a few of the switches, experimentally. Nothing happened. Whether the fuses were all blown or there was no power at all, I did not know. But I definitely did not have the capability to fix it. The email I'd received on the matter specifically stated not to worry about the electricity supply, and call me a coward if you like, but given the choice between functioning lights and creeping down a dark, isolated building on my own, I'd rather have the former. After climbing up the bare stairwell to the next floor, I was able to stow my light. The windows here had not been boarded up, and great cones of sunlight crept through the empty frames. The only creepy thing about this place was how tidy it was. Yeah, a thick layer of dust coated everything, and what few furnishings there were had been left and piled up in the corners of the room. There was literally no sign of human disturbance. The sort of place that an urban explorer would kill to stumble across, no doubt. I actually felt almost unwelcome there. The closest example I can think of is when you walked into class really late, back in school, and everyone turns to look at you and you feel weirdly unwelcome. Yeah, well, I was getting that exact same feeling now in my stomach when I found the room. It was pretty much as the email had described, yet again. A big open plan office layout, with marks on the floorware and ceilings where the cubicles had once been. A great grief of office chairs tangled together in one corner. There was only one desk in the room, pushed against the far wall. As I approached it, I noticed that, unlike the rest of the building, it was completely devoid of dust. I pulled the laptop out of my bag and set it down. It was a cheap piece of crap 2000 model, which I bought online for only about £30. Reformatted and installed only the basic function onto. It was specifically for this exertion. I wasn't going to gamble my personal machine on an interesting story I'd read about on the internet. Once booted up, I produced the network cable. It was an old grey one, the kind you'd attribute with screechy dial-up tones and parents complaining about you hogging the phone lines. One had slotted up into the back of the machine, and I looped the other down behind the desk. Crouched beneath it, I felt my way along the flaking plastic until my hand brushed against the port. My probing fingers discovered a cable already attached, which I unhooked and replaced with my own. When I stood up, I noticed that the cable that I held in my hand was torn, as if the other half had been yanked away so abruptly that the plastic had ruptured and the wires inside had snapped. I actually still have that cable in my office somewhere. Yeah. Nothing happened. No icons popped up announcing that I successfully connected to the network, and the little signal strength symbol at the bottom right of the screen insisted that I was not online. Puzzled, I checked the printout of the email. No mention of this. Perhaps the power being off was an issue, contrary to the given directions. I called up a command window and tried sending out a ping. A ping, by the way, is the kind of echoed message that computers can send out to test a connection. It bounces back or receives a response from the other machines and servers on the same network as you. To my surprise, I received 2 or 3 automated responses right away. I was online alright. The next step was the internet. My homepage was set to Google, but strangely the program spent a good few minutes just on a blank white page, before I was redirected to a different search engine. It was similar to Google in its minimalism, empty background with a central text bar, but the address was www.patriotsearch.com. In place of the Google text logo, there was a simple sketch-styled picture of a stoic-faced soldier holding a British flag in one hand and a US in the other. The words Semper Fidelis were scratched onto his helmet. I tried YouTube, but the page briefly forwarded before redirecting me to the Patriot Search website once more. My mouth felt dry as I clicked on the new search option. I headed to the BBC News website. This, it seemed, was still online. As I skimmed the news headlines, any doubts that I had previously had quickly vanished. The Second American Civil War grows in size and intensity. US troops redeployed from Afghanistan, Egypt and Turkey to defend home soil. France and Spain left reeling after thermonuclear devices blown up on their borders. Police in Texas circulate CCTV images of men believed to be responsible for the kidnap and murder of over 50 women since 2008. Handgun bans set to become the new law across America after last week's White House shooting spree. The US and Britain allow Australia and Canada to join the Patriot Alliance. UK terrorists continue to murder border towns and demand Scottish independence. German theoretical physicist arrested by US agents accused of treason. Research on alternative universes and interdimensional travel among confiscated items. I sat back, fumbled a cigarette in my mouth and lit it. I had no idea precisely what I had just stumbled across. I still don't. But it was huge, some kind of alternate reality? News from the future? It seemed too big to be a trick. Anyway, as the email had told me, this network, this other internet, was an overlap between our world and another one. I went back to the Patriot Search website and began punching in anything that came to mind. Olympics, Facebook, Human Rights Act, police powers, current world map. Slowly, surely, a picture began to form. A picture of the world beyond my laptop. The little umbilical cord which was the cable. I was a blind man feeling his way through a cave bit by bit. The more I read, the more fearful I became. A lot of bad shit had happened. I had neither the time nor patience to list everything here. You can't expect me to describe an entire separate historical timeline, but I'll leave you 3 examples. Police in the United States and UK were gradually being phased out by the army. From what I had gathered, the only crimes that were properly investigated were treason and fraud, leaving all kinds of depraved killers and perverts free to do as they pleased. Some had even gained a fan following. I stumbled across this one website dedicated to someone called the Dockyard Butcher. It had an image of a video gallery on the sidebar, and the things I saw made me feel queasy. The world was overcrowded, but not like ours. I make no exaggeration. London was ringed by shantytown slums, the sort of place you wouldn't expect to find outside of a third world country. There was so much to take in that I'm probably forgetting half of it as I type. Oh, and something happened in New York City. There were plenty of records back of it dating back to the 90s, but then just stopped. Like it never existed. I couldn't find it on any of the maps, no discussion about it on any public forums either. I'm not sure if it's an isolated example or one of the many places to officially stop existing. But if anyone decides to look for themselves, then I'm sure it's something interesting to investigate. I really recommend that you do it though. A shrill bleep startled me. I'd left the command drive open after testing my connection. It was notifying me of an echoed ping. I reopened the window and sure enough, I had been pinged. Moments later, a second ping popped up on the feed, a different source, though the IP address was listed beside the notification. As far as we know, the building is the only one with a connection to the network, meaning if they hadn't come from this side. As I tried to grasp what was happening, a third thing appeared. Something clicked inside my head and I felt my stomach turn. I had grasped blindly into the unknown, and now the unknown was grasping back. People from the other world had felt my clumsy investigations and were in turn investigating us. That was when my laptop went crazy. The mouse stopped responding to my usage. In fact, the entire pointer disappeared completely from the screen. The internet browser instantly froze up and forwarded me to another website, a black-white screen which loaded up almost instantaneously. A file began to load onto one of the machines, its icon a pale pupil devoid of eyeball, its name a blank space. Though I wasn't hugely worried about the well-being of the old laptop, the idea of something from this other place as pushing into my reality was strangely horrifying. I leapt to my feet and just as the download had reached the 75% mark, I yanked free the cable from the wall. A squeal of static emerged from the computer speakers, and then the download bar quivered, frozen on the screen. I had dropped my cigarette in the rush, so I sit back to light another one, and then stared at the socket on the wall. Scratched it and it was scratched and slightly deformed due to my rather rough exit from the world that lay beyond it. I have no idea what that I program was for, and I didn't try to find out. I took the old laptop apart, and then and there, I carefully ground each piece below my heel. All that's left of it was its inner workings and a scattering of green plastic shards and bent metal. As for what the future holds for the old climate research buildings, I have no idea. Gwended Council have been talking about demolishing it for years now, and perhaps one day they'll pull their fingers out and get round to it. I'll be honest, when it's nothing but rubble and ashes, I won't be mourning its loss. Until that time, the little socket, a little window into the unknown, is still there if you desperately want to investigate. I can't stop you. Still, it's plain to see whatever this other world is, this network represents, it's cruel and a malicious shadow of our own. Just a word of warning to any other would-be pioneers. However, if they try to make contact, ignore them. If they try to get through, deny them. Scientists believe that should alternative universes exist, then it would be almost impossible to knowingly transfer physical objects from one to another. Then again, though data is simply electrical impulses of energy that force should be exchangeable between two realities simply paves the way for another, far less desirable visitors. I believe that whatever possibilities the network holds for us are way outweighed by the risk, because what lies just across the veil is not some sort of monster or demon, but a humanity turned cold and hateful. It knows how we think. It knows we'll come back. If this hasn't all dissuaded you from exploring, then please just be careful. Don't let them in. That was interesting. That's called The Other Internet. It's quite a pain to find on things, but if you do want to find it, I'll maybe leave a link, maybe not. I don't know. It's quite a pain to find. Just The Other Internet by someone or the other. It's not the one on creepypasta.com. if you want to read it for yourself, though. It's not the one about George W. Bush. That one's shit. Well, like and subscribe, be your best friend. I'll see you next time.